So to splice is the interweaving of strands, like fastening the ends of a wire together by twisting interweaving strands, so that conductivity can take place. Often, splicing is an improvised maneuver that has to be done to connect strands that have been frayed over time, or accidentally cut, or purposely cut. To do poetic politics is to deliberately cut things up, but not just that. Cutting things up means to twist back into new forms for new content. If conductivity is to take place, we need live wires. Here at the Splice, we regard everyone present as live wires capable of conducting and examining the latest poetic social codes transmitted through our capacitors, our readers. 3 years ago, when Henry, Sean, and I met for a meeting about starting this reading series, we thought about what we wanted out of the series, and since then, we never stopped talking about it. The Splice as such, the Splice is a practice that dialectically conjoins the current political aesthetic zeitgeist, the poet readers, and most importantly, the live wires, everyone assembled here today. A zigzag motion forward is what we've come to expect, every reading having its own unique energy and rhythm, their own stopping points and sudden restarts. All that said, we have no idea what's about to go down here, but we love it that way. And so Henry will first be introducing lead testing DM's unique conductivities, followed by Sean's testing Tongo's recalibrating potentials.
All right, splice we shall. Hurricane Francine came through earlier this week. I don't know if you heard this, read about this. And we are grateful that for the majority of New Orleans residents, its damage was minimal. A far cry from Patricia Smith's swaggering embodiment of Katrina and her persona poem of the same name, in which the storm, quote, loudly loves the slow bones of elders, fools, and willows. I have mixed feelings about that poem, a slurry of feelings, if you will. But I, however, actually would consider the poet D.M. Aderibigbe cut from a similar cloth of sail, though in a less destructive manner, and rather one given over to creation, not the swagger, but the swivel of memory. Elders, by his hand, loved in the form of parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. Fools, cherished in the shape of humans, clamoring for any shard of the divine within themselves or one another. Willows, witnessed in the natural arc of grief set to whatever the weather of the moment, whoever died last. Time in the form of sky can always turn itself inside out. Lick your finger, something in the air will dry it. Aderibigbe's 2018 debut, How the End First Showed, even simply by the title itself, is fully aware of this powerful paradox inherent in the narrative and narration, how our tongues are ultimately tied as one. At least this is Aderibigbe's desire in the poem Pothos. Quote, I would make my bones and your blood speak a common language. Enter any metaphor you like. A Gordian knot, a hurricane, a rat king. The quandary remains unsolvable in spite of any word, any sword, any wind shear or rat trap. The title of the collection is taken from a line in his poem, The Beginning, a poem of two sexanes, wherein the second stanza inverts the other in a palindromatic, new word, blockbuster fashion. As the tapes used to say, please be kind, rewind. Or in another poem, as he puts it, a little bit more cruel, if the hearse could move in reverse, if tears could snake back into my eyes. The lyric moment on tape here, one of a family's unraveling as their father abandons them on just another Wednesday. The speaker, through the eyes and mouth of a grandmother, spins the fated decision over and over again until we too are dizzied and ate up by the pain and impossibility of what ifs. The easy mention of the Ouroboros symbol here would be like shooting snakes in a barrel. Instead, reading Aderibigbe's work, I'm reminded of Simone Lee's sculpture created in the image of Mami Wata, the West African deity akin to the sirens of Greek mythology, if you'll let me oversimplify it. a creolization of African water deities in the European legend of mermaids. This sculpture was installed in 2022 in Egalité Circle, where just 7 years ago, a monument of Confederate Robert E. Lee glared down upon the city's people for over 100 years. Thanks to the political import and organizational genius of Take 'em Down NOLA, the 60-foot column which once held it now is flat. Lee's sculpture, titled Sentinel Mamiwata, cut through any remaining heirs the monument that stood there before or let linger. Cast in a muted black bronze, the feminine figure stands tall, with a snake wrapped around her torso and neck, its head poised outward at the crux of alertness and protection. This serpentine guardianship becomes her satellite-like figure, her spoon-shaped head a nod to the Zulu status symbol, as if ready to receive whatever airwave or sea spray or confluence of zeitgeist comes across her mind, like ours. Mamiwata, whose face, depending on who's looking, can be beautiful or dangerous. The head of her statue, a bull-like satellite, watches, protector, listener, both of land and sea. And just as the water goddess watches over the city, Aderibigbe's work acts as guardian of memory, listening to both land and sea, the past and the present. Likewise, his forthcoming collection, 82nd Division, which just weeks ago won the National Poetry Series this year. A week ago, y'all. Which I've been lucky enough to read a sample of, has an amphibious unit, a regimented formation of land and sea, apropos of the silt that we stand on today. Where are you at when your toe dips into morality's shore? Oh, how right and wrong goes in and out. To summarize it from one of his poems, New Hell, a grandmother recalls a man burned at the stake, vigilante justice gone wrong, no due process, just flame. In another one, love itself is questioned. Quote, "Dear love, are you real or just something someone somewhere gave a face to?" Aderibigbe's work is a balancing act between tenderness and trauma, violence and vision. Keep your balance, do your best. D.M. Aderibigbe.
Thank you so much. I really hope I can live up to that. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. Such a pleasure to be here. And I'm reading New Orleans for the first time. Can you all hear me? Yes. All right, thank you. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from my first book and read some poems also from my forthcoming collection. Yeah, I like to think of this collection as, like growing up in, my part of Lagos. I'm always wary of what Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie calls the danger of a single story. So, when I talk about my part of Lagos, the part of Lagos I grew up in is, it's not the rich part of Lagos, but, Lagos has, its rich part. Lagos has skyscrapers. Lagos has everything New York has. So I always make sure I say that, but my part of Lagos is not, that's not my reality of Lagos, but that's not everyone's reality in Lagos. So I always try to, make sure I don't, misrepresent Lagos. So, just growing up, most of the people that we kind of like knew, we're not, because of things like that, because of lack of education, so to say, this sort of violence was sort of like rampant, right? Which in a way, I'm trying to look for a very palatable way to put this, which in a way, we kind of saw as normal, right? Just growing up, I think that, this is sort of like my, this is an effort to, rewrite or some of these things that, we're not able to kind of like interfere, as children, because, as I say, in my society, age is potential power. So if someone is older than you, they are like potentially more powerful than you are, So as kids, there was nothing you could say to like an elder, even if they were doing something wrong. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, so thank you. So this is titled Tiredness. Vehicles, hoods, and honk. The deadlocked traffic jam poured a smoke into the afternoon. Curses and pleas sprayed on the road like pollution. Afternoon gathers around the Danfo bus. Two men struggle to pull open the door. A man pours his folded fist on a woman like stones. I stand outside the bus, looking. My father slaps and slaps my mother with the back of his hands. My mother's lips are broken. Two men hold up my father's hands, his knuckles painted with blood. Mother lies on the ground, tired of rising after every fall. And so this is the last poem I'll read from this book before I move on to like the next one. So this is titled In Praise of Our Absent Father. So there's something here called Harmattan. So Harmattan is just our own version of winter, but without the snow. So, you know, it just gets cold, and but there's no snow. So that's it. On the 5th day of the month, made of Harmattan and cold sun, my mother washed dirt off grains of rice. She chopped carrots, onions, pepper, and liver on the slab into rings. My older sister slit open the belly of a huge ejacote, packed out its intestine as one offloads clothes from the bag. Bits of sweat slipped down their faces. The sitting room, strands of juju melody streamed out of the stereo. The house was covered with music. From the kitchen, my mother's effort smelled delicious. My mother wore shoki. She danced, we ate, raising cups in praise of her loneliness. So I'll move on to this one because, I'm sorry, because I don't like the poems in this book anymore, I'm sorry. The two I read are like the only two poems I like now. So, but these ones I still like them. Maybe in the next 5 years I won't like them anymore. I mean, the older we get, right, the more experience we get as writers, we'll just outgrow some poems. Maybe my publisher will be mad, but that's it. So thank you. So this is from 8th Second Division, and so I'm still kind of looking for how to, describe this book. I mean, I wrote the poems, right? I should know how to describe the book, but I mentioned earlier on about how I'm currently doing an interview with someone, and they asked me, what inspired like the poems in this book, right? And it actually made me think about it. Like the first poems in the book were actually the core of the book, right? The first poem I wrote in the book, rather, 3 multi-page poems. Were actually kind of like they take on colonialism head on, right? Directly talk about colonialism, right? So, but I don't necessarily think that the book is about colonialism, which it is, but that is tangential. Colonialism is very important. It's important for me to talk about it. But I think the book is primarily about, my desire to sort of like, just render, to just write about my people, to just write about Nigerians as like people who, who love and laugh like everyone else, like people who are not, they're not extraordinary. They're just normal human beings like Americans. They don't have to like, there's poverty there, just as there's poverty in America, just write about people who have, teenagers who fall in love, and people who are kind of like, who also have, mental health issues, people who are joyful, right? People who celebrate, different holidays, So it just kind of like, it's just an attempt at rendering them. However, it is impossible for me to do that because, without writing about colonialism, because Nigeria is a post-colony, right? So it's a post-colonial nation. So there is no way to write about the post-colony without writing about what led to that post-colony, right? The creation of that post-colony, and now their lives have been halted forever by British intervention and European intervention. So basically, that's how I think about the book. So, so the first poem in the book is titled Lagos, which is my hometown. But as we know, when you came to USF, I told you about, Lagos. I call it my hometown, but it's actually not a town. It's a city of 25 million people. So maybe I say my home city, but you get what I'm saying. Lagos. I come back to a nest of noise, where disco and downfall buses fill the road's lungs. On either side, stores made out of plastic bags, spinach, okra, bell pepper on parade like national pride. I come back to memories, seeking shelter from untamed sun. A schoolboy sucks juice out of a finger of sugar cane at a bus stop. His friend, closely behind, dances to Olamide's Eniduro, booming out of a nearby barber shop. In front of a Face Me I Face You building, a shriveled voice shreds a fable for a party of teenage girls. I come back to the land of lagoons, where sons of the soil became visitors to their home visitors, as local law tells us. I come back to history's beginning. Ekoakete, Iluodon, Lagos, the land of my mother and her mother. This land where whatever is left of me will shrink to dust. So I've been, one of my favorite poems is like the duplex poem that the poet Jericho Brown sort of like invented, who is also from Louisiana. So it's kind of like, as Jericho describes it, right? It's kind of like, when you combine the ghazal, right? And the blues poem, right? As well as the sonnet, right? So which means, it's a 14-liner, right? The sonnet, right? The basic definition, which means, it emphasizes the independence of the couplet, right? Like the ghazal, right? Which means, there's also like echo, right? Which means the succeeding line sort of like echoes the previous one, right? Just as the blues will kind of like dictate. So this is titled Duplets and Elegies. An elegy is a love poem, says my uncle, who smiles into a mirror. My uncle smiles into a mirror. The face he worships is a palace. The face he worships is a palace of wrinkles, though nothing new to see. Lotito, wrinkles are nothing new to see. Time is a boss that's always on the road. I am a boss that's always on the road. Old lovers now mistake me for a stranger. My lover warns, don't make me a stranger, love, if what we have was ever over. Love, if what we have was ever over, would we be an elegy or a love poem? I'm sorry, bro. Okay, cool. So, yeah, the last two poems I have, I was kind of like, talking about the idea of colonialism and the post-colony, right? So the first one is titled English, and then maybe I will also, just talk about the second one, Christian and Abisideria. But, so English, I think it will kind of like, you will get the gist of it when I'm done. I'm reading it. But, also one other thing about, the post-colony is that, I mentioned how colonialism has altered people's lives forever. It's also the idea that, it sort of like breeds this, and also, capitalism, right? And while I know that, we all are carriers to a particular, extent, right, as we say, which we all say. I think it's also very, very important for us to point out that, colonialism and capitalism, they work hand in hand, right? At least where I'm from. In the sense that, the idea that you have to go to school to make money, right, will push your parents to tell you that, okay, well, because, I'll use myself as an example because I can't speak for everyone. My mom didn't get to middle school, but she would say, okay, because I don't speak English well, right? So you have to learn how to speak English. So which means, you have to be better at speaking English than even your native tongue. Because English is supposed to be seen as a sort of a reflection of intelligence, which it's not. It's definitely not, right? It's not. We all know that, So, but it's supposed to be seen as such because of how colonialism and capitalism go hand in hand, right? That, if you speak English, which means, you can get good job, you can make money, So that's how it's driven by. So, and this poem deals with part of that. English. There are 8 people in my family. Only one speaks English. I was born with Yoruba. At 13, I came to English. Before my tongue's baptism, I was tied to silence. I had learned the stupid speak Yoruba, the smart English. Once, a boy from my new school denied his mother to me because she knew no word in English. Grandma bought me my first dictionary the day I came home to hide an old raggedy textbook called Neo-Practical English. On Mother's proud days, I was the dictionary on which she relied. D.M, a name I found shortly after her death through English. As you would have noticed, it's a very... Okay, so, the last poem is it's titled Christine and an Abecedarian. And so, I think also this kind of will show how it's functioning. So, this is a personal poem. And we all, most of us know personal poem through the voice of someone else, right? So this is through the voice of a woman called Lady Lugard. So she was kind of married to the first Governor General of the area that became known as Nigeria. So a little bit of history lesson here about my country, obviously. So I'm from the western part of Nigeria, right? Which is called the Yoruba land, right? And then there's Igbo land, which is the eastern part of Nigeria. Then there's Hausa land, right? So when the British came, all of these people were not. They were of course, they all had black skins, they're like all Africans. But they weren't one people per se. Does that make sense? It's just how you had the Germans, the Italians, the English, they're different, right? But, so they weren't one people per se. So when the British came, because of the fact that it was very important for them to kind of maximize the resources that they had, right? So they kind of needed to bring all of these territories together because they didn't have a lot of officers on ground. So they didn't have a lot of people who they didn't have enough officers. So which means they had to bring these places together and put it under one officer. So that way they're killing 3 birds with 1 stone. So then they brought the northern part and then the eastern part and the western part together and became known as Nigeria, which means Niger area. So areas around the Niger River. So, but another interesting fact is that the woman whose voice I'm writing this poem from, so I read an article that she wrote actually about naming Nigeria. So she named this, she considered this area a real estate property, not a land with people. So she said, okay, well, for a real estate property, I think that name is pretty cool, so I think, that's, yeah. So, and I have it as Abecedarian as well. We all know, right? We inherited the language, right, from the British, the ABC, right? The alphabet, English alphabet. So what better form to write than, something that spells out the English alphabet. All right. Afra Momom, black-eyed bean, cocoa bean, buried in sacks in the cargo hold. Columbites, gold, pegmatites, tantalite, dragged onto the lower decks. Every single day, a crowded ship sailed from the coast of Lagos to Bristol. Grenade, gone, 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 gunpowder, got. How did anyone think we made the Africans dig in the sun, sow in the rain, reap in the sun? Joining each man was his wife and children. Kids old enough to walk joined him. Later, each man, under the control of another man, controlled his family to fill the sacks. Nigeria, Sudan, West African Guinea. Of all names that swam to the bank of my mind, oh, I had the pleasure of coming up with the names. These three, quite frankly, stood out like stars. For a real estate property, any of those names sounds about fine. In the end, I settled for the one I coined last, Nigeria. Bible, mirror, umbrella, verse. We arrived bearing gifts, knowing very well what they wanted, what we wanted. We arrived sharing gifts, knowing what we wanted, killing xenophobia, top on the list. For a full year, we did this. Then we attacked. Lion, lioness, zeal, zeal, zebra, 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 zilch. Thank you.
Keep it going, keep it going. All right. More excellent poetry tonight. Originally from San Francisco, Tongo Eisen-Martin is a poet, movement worker, and educator. His latest curriculum on extrajudicial killing of Black people, We Charge Genocide Again, has been used as an educational and organizing tool throughout the country. He is the author of Somebody's Dead Already, Heaven is All Goodbyes, Waiting Behind Tornadoes for Food, and Blood on the Fog. In 2020, he co-founded Black Freighter Press to publish revolutionary works. He is San Francisco's 8th Poet Laureate. In Juliana Sparr's Du Bois's Telegram, Literary Resistance and State Containment, she argues that it is impossible to have a totally autonomous literature. The literature always has commercial pressures, whether they come from the market or from patrons. The literature is so integral to nationalism that it almost always has some form of government support. Sparr also, depressingly, argues that it is not possible in the contemporary moment for literature to be meaningfully anti-national or even just other than national. However, she does examine that poetries of autonomy and resistance arrive through separating themselves from the language conventions of the state. And the language of the state is the logic of the state. Its accepted figurations, syllogisms, ideologies, and deductive inferences of the so-called normative, i.e. state-approved psyche. Tongo Eisen-Martin's poems storm the field of the state's logics. The kinds of linguistic technologies that are required for an alignment of poetics towards the commons are the kinds of technicities that his poems employ. Through actionable experience in urban material politics, his poems disambiguate a commons within the late capitalist logics that saturate our imaginations. There's no way around this saturation, which is Sparr's dismay. There is only through, and that way through in these poems is the pattern, the arrangement, the deployment of logic through associative imagery, ideology, musicality, etc. These formal elements challenge those associations, and they should be challenged. And if I haven't hit on enough anti-establishment buzzwords, here are a few more. Disruption, decolonization, decentralization, precarity, hegemony, subversion, neoliberalism, and anti-authoritarianism. Yet, those words remain tools of the material systems that feed on suffering.
Our job, even that metaphor drips with capitalism. Our dream, that metaphor sweats with a brokered imagination. Our poetics, that's what we're here for. Our poetics can be to create a commons, to unite people, poets even, as a class. Audre Lorde and Sister Outsider iterates that poetry forms the quality of the light within which we predicate our hopes and dreams towards survival and change. First made into language, then into idea, then into more tangible actions. To counter, if one is not careful where one's language is born from, the idea, the ideology, and the action could be unintentionally tainted. To reverse Lorde's procedure, to begin in action, then toward ideology and idea, and then a language born of that material existence, could bring us closer to dismantling the master's house. I urge that you hold a metacognitive lens at the poetry performed this evening by asking, how do the patterns of logic in the poems tonight disrupt our inherent imperial, colonial, or capitalist logics? Where does it dagger and feint and reveal a poetics of the commons? Please welcome to the Splice stage, Tongo Eisen-Martin.
It's not gonna move. Whoa. You know, a lot of God can happen in 3 seconds. Not much heaven, though. And here is a man before a fight, a leave me alone type character, emerging from the penniless death of a one-way street fiction, a fancy way of saying I'm gonna make it even if I have to drive backwards. All I have is chord changes and 1,000 backhands. Driving the street like I'm choking it, car full of nephews, hasn't been a son since November, and there hasn't been a street I can't choke to death. This city better back down. You see this gun on the table? There's something about staring until it all feels stable. Why wouldn't I protect everyone? All my death sleep late, my son better be quick. My daughter better shoot first, because we fall for no one. You know, we fall for nothing, okay? The first thing you'll feel is the heat. This lady would tell me, trying to tell me about possession. Drink life need is what I mostly hear. And most of the world leaves me alone to breathe smog like a giant, to go to jail every once in a while when the genocide kicks up in late May, when politicians have too easy a time. I'm gassing backwards out a one-way street in honor of myself. And in honor of you, if you understand the nature of the world. And how long I've been just like my father? When hell of a resemblance says the anxiety of the neighborhood, this is a crossroads or a crossroads narrative, or so much crossroads, people get in the habit of turn back, only find themselves remembering me, but not my last words. A man before a fight should feel a heat. There's nothing to keep in mind, there's nothing to remember, really there's nothing to be. It's just this moment, then another, then stare, then it all becomes stable, then the table legs go fuzzy, and Friday's an unfamiliar face peeking in the window. It's cool to panic for a second. Composure is wasted on your worst enemy. People are marked on that sidewalk. You're the only thing life-size. And everybody knows this in the wire hanger empire. When the blood stops walking, that feeling isn't father enough to be permission to fold. You better swing one more time. You know that father of yours rose from the grave and said, just give me 5 more minutes? He said running water is a myth. It's us who are running up, down, and all alongside this water. And people don't rise from the grave. They're not laid down either. It's us who flip all around their bodies, so beware when the people around you all look like they're about to jump. It might be your time. You'll feel the heat. And when 4 walls demand to be 4 walls and the earth outside mutes, don't panic. Don't try to recreate the earth outside. Don't tell jokes to yourself. Don't even talk disrespectfully to the 4 walls. Instead, unclench your fists and walk away. There might be heaven if you understand the nature of the world. I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt-toothed man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative. All over the United States, there are toddlers in the rock. I see why everyone out here got in the big cosmic basket, and why blood agreements mean a lot, and why I get shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history or take the glass freeway. White skin tattooed on my right forearm. Ricochet Sue is near where I collapsed into a rat-infested manhood. My new existence is living graffiti. In the kitchen with a lot of gun cylinders to hack up. House of God in part, no cops in part, my body breaks down to Christmas. The new bullets, pray over blankets made from the old bullets. Pray over the 28th hour's next beauty mark. Extrajudicial Confederate statue restoration, the waistband before the next protest poster. Hey, by the way, time is not an illusion, Your Honor. I will save your deaths for last. You are witty, Your Honor. You're moving money again, Your Honor. It's only rented one thing. Non-white cops. And prison guard shadows reminded me of spoiled milk floating on an oil spill. A neighborhood making a lot of fuss over his demise, a new lake for a Black Panther party. Malcolm X's ballroom jacket slung over my son's shoulder, the figment of village, a new news to a new white preacher, all in an abstract painting of a president. Bought slavery some time, didn't it? The tantrum screeches of military bolts and election Tuesday cars, a cold-blooded study in leg irons, proof that some white people have actually fondled nooses. The sundown couples made their vows of love over opaque piece plastic and bold action audiences. The make every second is definitely my favorite law of science. Fondle news clippings and primitive Methodists, my arm chains imperialisms. Simple policing versus structural frenzies. Elementary school script versus even wider white spectrums. Artless bleeding and the challenge of watching civilians think. Terrible rituals they have around the corner. They let their elders beg for public mercy. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen these kids' heads and their arrows myself and see how much gravy spills out of family crest. Modern fans of war with their fucking t-shirt poems and t-shirt guilt and me having on the cheapest pair of shoes on the bus. I had no choice but to read the city walls for signs of my life. You know, these little societies, they wander together like hopeful drops of a virus. Citizen Testament is bent on off of me. A nation of breadwinners to hold me back like it's a Brinks. I wrinkle the concrete sometimes, like flesh. My Martin Luther King permanence, turned away from a podium into the reeds like God is a dangerous twin. Black August to the mountaintop balcony on my bedroom floor. You know they steal you from the earth itself and suspend you in your broken neck from their foolish euphoria. From the loyalty oath to their great superstition. Loyalty oath to their agrarian reform, I return to my mother completely disrespected. For peeling the heat off of purgatory, they kill poets like me. Walk me away from my poems, never to be heard from again. In this final industrial complex of bloodlines, picked over, picked through, a sport and spiritual death of you. Your devil at least half made. Police become a pretty word. I'm reading a lynch mob shoestrings like they were tea leaves, teaching you how to write about cities. Hey, it's the 25th century in the mirror, people. Tyranny against a chump turns you a chump to be mocked even with a gun in your car. A cubit of needlework spell tune for the proletariat, the relapse ministry. Talented people curled up in a fetal position next to a diamond dime. Just another service day in the theatrics of tea-house fascism, in a bouquet of surveillance cameras, in the poverty of God, new blue eyes, corpses of water, a newly potted presidency, a one big shiny coin. If you ask an animated capitalism, another non-literal voice, they're killing this white freedom. The deification of hyphens. Medicine bread and picture shows, great protests in LA, guests of our ink, drop kicking roses in the graveyard. Like a stone torn in half to pin advances. Despite CIA guideposts. Despite non-African past and futures, a metaphorical but not surreal day in the horn-ridden life horn player improvising king. Like a radio prize fight featuring Shango himself, a real hand sweeps the land of racism. May I return to the ground? May I make progress with the gun? On her mother Emmanuel, they put on music that evening. Her swinging tight body language for you to drink with fermented $5 bills. For your body language, some applause, my past stomach lining, neither a good thing nor a bad thing like being psychic on the way to a lethal injection. It'll sit you down with Lady Day. Lady Day leading you through surrender their souls to Africa too soon. Potty thought floating in a cup of water, she saved me, accessing my stomach, accessing the love the American lynch. Coast leaves one avalanche into the wrist, our mother Emmanuel, avalanche into the sharp keys, pain. Or the deal you make with pain, you know, a piano makes sense for them. Laying hands on the world gradually. Addressing the bending necks on the streets of the north. Child assembling, 10 trigger fingers on that piano harmony would have me putting 100 fights on every direction offered to Lady Day. Leaning on trees again, recruiting the countryside itself, saying, lay your plan on this lightning, make your poems a corner pocket of men. I fucking greeted the blues itself. America may clean my dead body, but will never include me. There goes the poet. Killing without killing. Never mind this little painting of your language. May I be a meaningful lynching. A crow's passing. Good and dead by the afternoon. You know, our street life, to a certain extent, starts fear. Sometimes with a spiritual memory even. Pre-dawn soul clap, your father dying even. Maybe I pushed the city too far. My sensitivities to landfill districting and minstrel whistles, white supremacist graffiti on westbound rail cars, all overcoming reauthored. Reauthored by revolutionary violence that chose its own protagonists, a muted stage of genes. You know, the garbage is growing voices, condensed Marxism, for warrior depressives, underpasses in their pockets because they just might be deities, a decent bit on the panther neck, a merciful Marxism, disquieted home life, a metaphor for relaxing next to a person who is relaxing next to a gun. I stared at my father for a few seconds, then returned to my upbringing, returned to the souls of Ohio black folk. You know, fucking revolution is damn near pagan at this point. You know what the clown wants? The respect of the ant. Wants to interpret pain only, wants to pull a 38 out of a begging bowl, wants me to hurt my hand on this pen. I'm not tired of these rooms. Just tired of the world to give them a relativity. My only change of clothes prosecuted the government, finally learned how to write poems, shootouts that briefly align and make up a parable. The parables like white bodies are paid well. That the white men even have leaders. Are all white people white men? A rat pitches a river, can almost taste the racial divide, can almost roll a family member's head into a city hall legislative chamber, knows who in this good book. I mean, all I do is practice, Lord. Decide not to talk out of anger ever again. Met my wife at the same time I met new audience members for our pain. We passed each other cigarettes and watched cops win. A city gone uniquely linear, Harlem of the West, do a true universe. I'll always remember you in fancy clothes, my wife said. So here I sit, twisting in silk ideation. Rifle made of post-bellum targets made of my honest language. This San Francisco poetry is how God knows it is me whining. Riding among the lesser respected wolves, lesser observed militarization, Dixieland's prison bookkeeping. I mean, the California Great Coast are coming. Lynch mob gossip and bourgeois debt collection is tempting to change professions mid-poem. In the Chicago briefing, the white sergeant saying blank slate for all of us after this black organizer is dead. Standard academics toasting $2 wine at the tank parade. Bay of nothing, Lord, just nuclear cobblestones, gun line athleticism, and the last of the inherited asthma. Children giving white dogs to play with in fear. Facial expressions borrowed from rich people's shoestrings. I can hear hate and teach hate and call tools by people names and name people dead to themselves. No one get naturalized except federal agents soon. Carbon the equator and throw something. I'm sorry to make you relive all this, Lord. All this pre-dawn monarchy friends putting up politician posters, then snorting the remainder of the pace, minstrel script shoving to the walls by their elders. My children sharpening quarters on the city's edge. For these audiences, I project myself into a ghost-like state. For these gangsters, I do the same. Every now and then, take a nervous look east. Sleep becomes Christ. Sleep starts going on racial identity. Do you ever spiral, Lord? Has the gang age betrayed us? Be patient with my poems, Lord. There's so much pain and disappointment, crime, mean there has to be a freight traders come with it. Lord, is that my revolver in your hand? You know, better presence than these have yawned in cages. They've called us holy slaves. Fill the school libraries with cop documentaries, baby. I don't have money for food. Shit. I don't have a fucking present moment at all. Oh, I had this dream, man, that I was laid up in the hospital, and people kept like coming into my room by the dozens, and each dozen had like special handshakes for each other, and occasionally current dance moves, and they would kick my hospital bed from time to time to let me know that they'd be dancing from this room on out to my grave, like strange cha-chas and soft shoe shuffles, disco spins, like they were dancing for a white sundial, marking numbness in their feet drum race ride, and I was ready to die because, you know, ask a musician in the tunes after court, it's the surroundings themselves that is the uniform, but still, I just couldn't bring myself to visualize against God. One of them stood over me like a conductor, you know, waving their arms over my body, directing my heart to beat fainter and fainter, directing the tubes to turn the fluids back. And I kept fainting from consciousness with thud after thud on the legs of my bed as they danced wilder and wilder. Well, wild but like meek or artificially meek, like an artificial pastor told them to be, also be some kind of projection or character to be laid at their feet. You the only one participating in the revolution today. They mocked me, and I was ready to go because there's plenty of pianos that can use a new song, and I'm gonna be in the revolution for as long as it takes, so you can punch me out now. I mean, I was born with one foot in the lime pit anyway, but man, check it out. No one bothered to ask the doctor if I was really dead. They were just too busy strutting, too busy kissing. I just kept fading and fading with only enough breath and sweet consciousness to count their smiles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I heard a voice, a whisper, and it was counting with me. 6, we said. 7, we said. 8. And another voice joined us. 9, 10, and another, you see. I haven't been eating, Mama. I've been in a trance. I haven't been sleeping. I've been washing my face off the port of Charleston. there's blood on the fall. First, I should have apologized to the souls of the house because I'm wearing the cheekbones of the mask on me. Like a pill bottle whose name is yours, name tagged on the side of a factory of risk, teeth of the mask now. Back of the head of the mask now. A new phase of anti-anthropomorphism founded for real faces. Stuck with one of those cultures that believes I chose this family. Oh, I'm not creative. Just the silliest of the revolutionaries. My blood drying on my only jacket, the police state psychic, middleman evangelizing for the creation of an unmasked and unmet blood of a lamb, less racialized or awesome prison sentence. Right angle made between a point on a Louisiana plantation and a 5-year-old's rubber ball, 3 feet high and falling like a deportee plane to complete my interpretation of garden variety genocide. I am small talk about loving your enemies a little more realistically, about paper tigers, and also go, I need my left hand back. Broke my neck on a piano key, found paradise in a fist fight. Maybe I should check into the Cuban line. Watching the universe last metronome, some call black Jacobins, they just wait. These religions will start resigning in a decade or two. Some colorfully, some transactionally in a cotton gothic society, class betrayal, gone glasses. Ironically, my windows started fogging over too as I was trying to figure out which Haiti would get me through the winter, which poem houses souls, which socialist breakthroughs. Breakthroughs like taking 10 steps back and finally trying stillness. Like introducing Gabriel Prophet to the Thelonious Month. I remember childhood. I remember the word childhood being a beginning. Scribbling on an amazing grace, I rented this body from some circumference of slavery. Remember being kicked out the Midwest. Strange fruit theater, lithium and circuses, like-minded stomachs, the ruling class blessing their blank checks with levy phone, with opioid tea, sentient dollar bills, yelling to each other, pocket to pocket. Cello stands in the precinct for a company counter-revolutionaries. My mother raised me with a simple pain. The poet loses his mind. Like the room has weather, or first girlfriend gravity. That's between me and you, the madness wants me forever. A pair of apartments defining both my family and political composure. Books behind my back, bail money paid into the streets, playing euphoria cliche. Bracing for the medicine's recoil, sharing a dirty daily sandwich with my friends, black Jacobins, underground topography of a grandmother's hand, psychology of the mask now. Teeth of the mask again. Guided by teeth goes this bullshit country. There's a cow's mouth on the flag. A peculiar notepad holds street life dear, but the writer's not here. He's somewhere talking to tombstones about the good old days of splashing reborn water on his latest face, or wondering how his old gun doing in the afterlife. Wondering how much death trap is in those gas stations. Now, there's got to be $1 million a day on this concrete island. New engine in the moonlight never goes down. 72 straight hours at night. At least according to everyone's posture around here. 8:30 in the morning is really 30 minutes to closing. The city shuts down for a sleepy rat race. Elevator shoe shuffle to the nearest heaven. Laughing with rats the whole way up. There's scabs everywhere. In puddles of city and concentrated schools and TV lit warm rooms. The light reveals military fatigue when it hits just right on the ties that are wrapped around the necks of lazy white guys. Empire is too easy, baby. Chin at the walls on some if you feel like it. Best way for a target to move is shooting back. Running for a tree line made of freeways. Wisdom says against a war machine on Tuesday, you stand no chance. But may we be the last poor people to play safe. Cow's mouth on the flag. The politician raises his hand and the crowd shows their teeth. And the oligarch raises his hand. Little kids are not safe outside, man. We are all high, depressed, and comrades in function. 15 minutes of closing in the city has survived another black rebellion. We just paying dues by trash fires, not just anybody can set it. Don't you love how deadly things whisper in the moment and people killed like feathers fall with everybody screaming inside? The writer knows that death is not a matter of dignity, rather humor. And a house that smells like roach races, nuclear percentages on torn stalls. Here life never was. It's just lazy matches and manic inhumanity, hands rushing away from life, towards those. What are we doing here? Surviving. For no reason in particular, because no one gone far today, nobody will go far tomorrow. Trust me, hell and heaven cannot count. Strange gardens with secondhand clothes play, and concrete wishes to be human so that it could be accountable. Where they find you drenched, and drains wish to be human, so that they could be worthy arms for you to die in. Hey, greet them all, grandson. Prepare for the day when every child is calm, but don't say we ghosts didn't write you a poem. Don't say we didn't dig your life. Remember the shotgun by the coat rack that everybody in the house knows how to use. Remember the tightrope made of needles for walking between driveways and man-made best friends. Go ahead, grandson, tune this street again. Never mind this country kills musicians first. Broken neck, nice scarred neck life. If these walls could write lyrics, they say, what's your angle, angel eyes? 30, 50 rounds passed by on a street with no daughters. This street has no sons, just young prisoners of war in a racist city that means to make capital, and we know so much. We know it all. We were stood against walls. Who's on the third cross around here? Cow's mouth, salivating over the street. And that is the story of why we aim at teeth.
Don't stop. Don't stop. Thank you, Tongo. Thank you, DM. Splice. I'm supposed to close out. Sean and Rodrigo, thanks. That was incredible. Thank you both so much. I'm going to open it with Neo Sundari, the end of this poem, New Orleans is. New Orleans is river, lake, and ocean. New Orleans is sound, saints and sinners. New Orleans is love, tears, and laughter. New Orleans is people. Okay, so I'd like to discuss the positives of our environmental situation here in New Orleans. Not the porousness of our skin or the language process of into the ear, out of the mouth, or the mouth sound into the face of wherever, whatever. The looseness of materiality is what I'm talking about. Trying to make this world slick to see what happens. In a poem by Tongo, quote, called my girlfriend and described all the bottles segregationists had thrown at me that day. Even those bottles are permeable, but all you gotta do is break them. The permeability we have among our neighbors to become something then other than an individual unit of human. That invisible tissue of goodwill gooping up our vision here. Okay. In Aderibigbe's poem, Lagos, he concludes, it is the land where whatever's left of me will shrink to dust. We heard that tonight. But here, a little bit transmuted. A city where whatever's left of us expands to mud, mold, gulf, the fold between now and the next. At least that mode of dust can be a little muddier in this mode, this city of blur. I'm, for one, glad that we live in a place that doesn't pretend that the inside and the outside are extricable from one another. There's mud on the floors, there's water on the walls, there's mold in the engine. We're not subjected to nature here, but nature's subject always. What in other parts of the United States might be called creature comforts, we may simply emphasize creature, a thing permeable with all of creation. The slosh stays in the boot, the cough in the lung, the trash floating on the water. Close enough to tea leaves for me. I think it translates to something like, let's enjoy it. This city, this kind of poetry we've just heard tonight while we can. Thank you, Tongo. Thank you, DM. Thank you, people. The plural of people person? People, people. People, people. Thank you. Have an excellent night. Thank you so much.